Welcome everybody to the final keynote this year of the Agency Acceleration Series. Very excited to have Seth Godin today to talk about the future of agencies and do the live Q&A with me. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Chip House. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at SharpSpring, and we're bringing this event to you today. We brought this whole series to you because this type of content for agencies is the type of thing that our partners tell us they want to get. They want to learn from some of the experts in the digital marketing field, and that's why we're bringing people like Seth to you. So we think about SharpSpring, if you're not familiar, as a revenue growth platform, really a comprehensive set of sales and marketing automation tools, where 2,000 of our agency clients, leverage this platform to manage the entire life cycle of their customers, from lead to nurturing to sale, and then engaging customers over time. So that's SharpSpring. Without further ado, I want to talk about my guest here today. And again, it's a live Q&A, so you will be able to chat in your questions. And please do, and I'll ensure that I try to get to as many as possible. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people chatting questions in. So it looks like people are still joining here, but let's go ahead and bring up the slide and we can talk a little bit about the session and our speaker here today. So I'm a super fan of today's guest. And so Seth Godin is the author, 20-time best-selling pieces of work, and I followed him since the year 2000, when just a year after, I guess, he wrote Permission Marketing. And Seth's books, his blogs, his podcasts, from Permission Marketing to Purple Cow to The Dip to Linchpin to Tribes and many others, have really kind of formed the modern marketing lexicon. And so when I think about a typical marketer today will be able to spout off any number of different things they might have learned from Seth. And so with that, if we're able to bring up Seth here in a second, hopefully we can do that. One of the benefits of being part of the Agency Acceleration Series is we've tried to bring these 14 experts to you, including Seth, and all of them are authors, right? So we've offered their written words to you, and you can get a chance to have a demo of the SharpSpring platform, and you can get a signed copy of Seth Godin's book, This Is Marketing. So excited to be able to offer that to you. This has been already a popular book for people that have attended the series. And so you can get a signed copy of Seth's This Is Marketing book. And all you need to do is get a demo of our revenue growth platform. Okay, so with that, let's see if we can bring up Seth and we will start today's Q&A. How are you, Seth?
I'm fantastic. We've got people tuning in from California, Massachusetts, Austria, Jamestown, Tennessee. It's amazing. Brazil. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Truly around the world. That's impressive. Did you bring your own snacks? You promised to bring your own snacks.
I did, and I also brought one of my little writer's blocks with me too. So we're good. I've got chocolate. I've got magic cards. It's all very exciting.
I need more props. You're making me realize. So as I mentioned, I first became familiar with you in the year 2000 when I was working for a small, at that time, email marketing company, and read Permission Marketing. I felt like I was reading about the future of marketing, and then when I kind of reread it a few years later, it felt that way. Did you have any idea that Permission Marketing would become as iconic as it has become, and that email would still play such a central role, 20 years later?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me. And Chip, you've been great. Everybody on your team is terrific. I got an email address. I got an email address in 1976. And from 1976 until 1990 It was a yawn. Nobody was really making a lot of commotion about email. And I built the first email marketing company in the world. And it was, we proudly said, a $0 billion industry. And we would go to meetings and there'd be crickets. And we'd go to venture capitalists and they'd throw us out on the street. And I still believed, because I saw what happened when someone got an email and then they instantly were able to write back. This was, it was magic. And the reason I wrote the book, two reasons. One was we were in the business of selling this and no one understood what it was. And I figured a book could do a lot of groundwork for me before I had to go and make a sales call. And the second was, the math is pretty simple. If direct marketers get free stamps, they're going to send an infinite amount of mail. And so I saw spam looming on the horizon. And I said, spam's going to wreck all of this. How do we talk to people who are in it to make things better and make a profit and help them understand that spam is not their friend? And what I wrote was so controversial, I got kicked out of the Direct Marketing Association. And for 5 years, 5 years, I was not allowed to go to any of their events. I spoke in front of the committee of the Senate about spam, and they were literally kicking me under the table. And I was thrilled when they let me back in, because they needed to learn that just because you can take someone's attention doesn't mean you should, and that it's a precious resource. So no, I didn't know it was going to become a $20 billion a year industry, because I probably would have built something. But I did know that it was going to be around for a long time to come.
Yeah, that's great. And as I said earlier, I mean, some of the stories and the imagery and the concepts that you've communicated truly are kind of become lore, so to speak. You know, if you're a marketing geek like I am, is for sure, you know, I have probably quoted you in blogs and speeches, et cetera. But, you know, one story that sticks with me from permission marketing is that, hey, you don't walk into a singles bar and propose marriage to the first person you meet and then propose it to the next one. You kind of build a relationship. So that's a phenomenal story. I don't know, you probably still use that and similar.
You know, it's at the heart of what SharpSpring is building. It's at the heart of what it even means to be an agency. And we forget it all the time. We trade trust for attention. Just yesterday, a video went viral that some agency worked really hard on for a reason I cannot understand, about a family in the Philippines in which a kid is really traumatized. And I'll ruin the punchline because the punchline is absurd. It turns out the kid has 4 glasses growing on his back, and his mother's not really a human. She's a bottle of RC Cola. And you watch this thing and you're like, I need to share this with other people. But you don't say, I trust RC Cola more than I used to. You just don't. It's would be creepy to drink an RC Cola after watching this commercial. But agencies are so hooked on likes and clicks and ratings that they're trading all the time. And trading is not the answer. Life is not about who can we steal attention from. It's about who can we earn trust from. And that is at the heart of building a real business for the ages.
Yeah, you know, I think you've done a lot of writing for marketing professionals in general, building on some of those concepts. And, you know, today we're going to talk about the future of agencies. Before that, I just want to talk about your new book really quickly, The Practice. You know, with your, as I said, 20 times bestsellers, lists of books. You're more like the Beatles than like Pearl Jam, right? There is no sophomore effort. But talk about the practice in shipping creative work and what that means to agencies.
So either you ship creative work for a living or you don't. If you don't, you're a cog in the system. You're a commodity provider. We're going to replace you with someone cheaper than you. If you do a job where we can write down what you do all day, you don't have a good job. But if you're allowed to come to a talk like this, then you're not that. You're someone who is charged with solving interesting problems, coming up with new solutions. That is what it means to be creative, to be a human being who shows up with something that might not work, that makes things better. And so I wrote the book because it's personal. It's personal. Sorry, I'm just grabbing it here. It's personal to me and to my readers, which is, why is it so hard? Why do we think it's a gift? Why do we wait for the muse to come? Why do we blame it on our boss? Why do we get writer's block, which, as we know, doesn't exist? Well, it's because we're afraid. And none of the other 19 books make sense if you are not willing to dance with the fact that it's hard to speak up. And in an age of Zoom and pandemic and an overdue focus on racial injustice and caste and indoctrination, all of that, it's so easy to say, I'm just going to hide. And it's so much better to say, put me on the hook. I want to be on the hook. Put me in. I got something to say. I have something to contribute. And that is why we need to practice. And so it fits right in with the work an agency does, because the agency will not get it right every time. But if the agency can earn trust and show up making things better for people who care, it's transformative.
You know, I think agency people, creative people in general, tend to be perfectionists, you know, and kind of building on the concept of shipping work. I was just listening to your podcast on Akimbo about the pursuit of perfection, where I think you said something like there's a huge gap between junk and perfect, but if you insist on perfect, you'll never ship. So, I mean, what do you think that the takeaway is, the actionable takeaway there for agencies?
Well, so if you remember Mad Men, the life of an agency in 1966 was thrilling for two reasons. One, television was magic. If you spent enough money, it was going to work. There's just no question about it. Spend enough money, you'll make money. And the second is you couldn't measure anything. And so it was really hard to be caught in an asymptotic race for perfect, because, you know, no one remembers the edits on the Mean Joe Green Coca-Cola commercial. The edits weren't important. What was important is you touched somebody. And now, thanks to the internet, thanks to digital, everybody thinks perfect is attainable. I am number one on TikTok. Well, for today you are, and you think you got there because you did something perfect. But no, that's not actually how human beings work. We work because we function on stories, not digits. And if you are holding things back because you are arguing for perfect, then what you're really doing is hiding. And the hiding comes from fear. If you don't ship, you can't get in trouble. You can't be on the hook. If you don't ship, you can say, oh, I'm just trying to make it better. So I've done 7,500 blog posts in a row, and not one of them is perfect. Not one. And if I had been waiting for a perfect one, I'd still be waiting.
Yeah, that is super great advice, especially in the world of digital, right? It's essentially ones and zeros, and you can change it if you need to. So, and do so quickly.
That's right. That's a feature, not a bug.
It's a feature. Yeah. Another book that I've loved over the years, I guess, is just sort of the imagery of purple cow right now. I think that is relevant for shipping creative work, obviously, right? So the concept of the purple cow, creating something that's truly good enough so it's remarkable. It's not a brown cow, it's something different. So how do agencies,
let's dive into this a little bit, because I think it's at the heart of what keeps an agency small. If your mindset is that you need referrals, if your mindset is that you need a gimmick, if your mindset is, how do we spin this thing so that people will talk about it, you're never going to get to the next level. That the beauty of an agency is that you have the ear and money, but the ear of someone in the institution who can change things. And what makes something truly a purple cow is not the spin or the copywriting. It's the product itself. It is the story of what you make. If you can go upstream and help them make something better that has the story built in, that has a network effect as part of it, that works better if my friends know about it, suddenly your work of what you do now becomes so much easier, because you are trying to spread the word of something that wants the word to be spread, as opposed to demanding attention where it doesn't want to go.
It's a big difference. Yeah. So those were a few, I guess, breadcrumbs, so to speak, to the future of agencies, perhaps. So I'll just ask you, what do you think the future of agencies is?
So let's talk for a minute about the past of agencies. For 80 years, the agency was an artifact of a decision that was made in the New York City newspaper industry in the 1910s and 20s, which is if you go ahead and typeset the ad and deal with the advertiser, we'll give you 15% of the money that comes in. So the advertisers got it for free. Fine. And the agencies were sales reps. That's what they did. They sold media. And it grew and it grew and it grew. Procter & Gamble spent more than $2 billion on traditional advertising a few years ago. 15% of that, do the math, and you just got to keep it. And Procter & Gamble didn't feel like they were paying anything extra because it got taken off the top. And fast forward to the 2000s, and some of the biggest ad agencies report that more than 50% of their revenue comes from non-media expenditures, from public relations, from publicity, from technology, from things where it's not about getting your piece of a network TV buy. And so what an agency is has changed. Now we're dealing with this era where a lot of clients are either too busy or too afraid to learn the tech. And so the agencies, particularly small agencies, say, we will be the soft tissue. We will be your interface between the mammoth internet companies that want to take all your money and the dashboards and the tech that will help us spend your money wisely. And that's needed and it's important, but it's not the home run. The home run is the step after that. And it's the step after that that is the future of agencies, which is you are spending all day, every day with a bunch of clients figuring out how to live and thrive in an ecosystem that is based on free media. And even when you're paying for media, people have to opt into it. It's not like you have to wait for a word from our sponsors to be all over. Between ad blockers and everything else, it's all opt-in. Mm-hmm. What that means is you have the ability to get a client to make something better and to charge them appropriately, not by the click, not by the hour, but because you created millions and millions of dollars of value, because you transformed a nonprofit, because you helped an organization change the way they led. And you know better to do that than almost anybody, but you have to earn a seat at the table.
You know, you had mentioned something earlier this week when we were talking, Seth, but we didn't really build out the idea. You said, well, what about the future of clients?
Yeah.
Is that a fair question?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Because the future of agencies is inextricably linked to the future of clients. If the client consists of somebody who is buying cheap stuff from an offshore factory and drop shipping it to people who found their online store, they're very different than a client that has 1,000 brick and mortar stores, which is very different from a client that has an 80-year history of doing one thing. And we are seeing more and more direct marketing showing up on the internet. Direct marketing is measured action marketing. It is when the marketer knows who the customer is and transacts directly with them and can measure what works and what doesn't. And what this means is if you are a direct marketer, your approach to the world is totally different, because as soon as something works, you will spend an infinite amount of money on it until it stops working. That's the magic of direct marketing. And if you're selling to a brand marketer, which is a luxury good or lots of other things that we can mention, they don't want to measure. They shouldn't measure. And as a podcaster, I'll explain. If you're running podcast ads that have an attributable URL in them, you're acting like a direct marketer and running ads in a brand marketing place. It's not going to work. If you want to run a brand ad and don't measure it. And if you want to run a direct ad, run it where it belongs and measure it. And make sure your client understands the difference, because when you get those confused, that is when you end up with client dissatisfaction.
Right. You know, you brought up Mad Men, and I've used the concept of Mad Men myself before, just to sort of juxtapose that reality in the 50s and 60s versus what advertising is now. But even, you know, compared to where we were at 15, 20 years ago. So much of the advertising industry has moved to a much more measured approach in everything we do. And, I assume it's going to continue that way. I don't know what your perspective is, Seth, or how you think about, if you have any stories about some modern marketing approaches that are super impressive, leveraging that kind of.
So we got to be super careful about the words. Marketing and advertising are not the same thing. They used to be, but they're not anymore. Advertising is spending money, giving it to a media company to lease someone's attention. Marketing is every single thing we do that touches the market. And so in 1965, if you said I'm in marketing, basically you were saying I'm in advertising. Mm-hmm. And now if you say I'm in marketing, like how much money did Seth Godin spend on advertising in the last 2 years? 0. Because I'm not in advertising, I'm in marketing, and I'm able to spread the word and cause action to happen. And if I was an agency working today, I would say, yeah, we'll spend money for you, but we're not in the business of making Google rich. We are in the business of helping our clients grow by serving their customers. That is what marketing is, making things better by making better things.
Thanks for that. I appreciate the clarification. There's a bunch of questions coming in, Seth, and so let's go to a few of the questions here. Yeah. So Teresa asks, which digital strategies will be most necessary in 2021, and which might drop off?
Okay, so what's the difference between a strategy and a tactic? Strategy is something you're in for the long haul, and it doesn't change very often. And you can tell all your competitors what your strategy is. Won't make any difference. Tactics change all the time. They are in support of your strategy. Tactics, you could keep them a secret. That's fine. So, for 20 years, Howard Schultz told everyone Starbucks' strategy didn't help anybody compete with Starbucks. Their strategy was very clear and very obvious. Their tactics change all the time, right? That stored value gift cards are a tactic. The strategy is create a third place and get people hooked on a different kind of coffee and be in the right locations and everything else. So I think your question is which tactics are going to be impacted as we move into a fresh year, which is, I think there isn't one person on this call who won't be relieved to make the 0 go off the calendar. And we know that platforms are going to change. We know that new generations use new platforms. We know that antitrust noise is going to increase, which is going to make things more fair and better for advertisers. We know that algorithmic purchasing of advertising space is going to change things. I'm not good at tactics. We just know they're going to change, and that being resilient in the face of that change is key. On the other hand, strategy, I think the strategy is not changed in 20 years. Who wants to hear from you? What will they tell their friends? That's it. 2 questions. Mm-hmm. So, someone just asked, Barbara asked what about texting people? Well, if I want to get a text from you, it's great. And if I don't want to get a text from you, you're Satan. And you've got to decide which category you want to be in, because figuring out a way to elbow your way into my texts isn't going to work. Not with a client you care about. So I'll end this rant with one small aside. Many of you have gotten spam about somebody in a far off country who has put $15 million in a briefcase but can't get it out of the country. And if you're just willing to blah, 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 you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the question is, why are there so many typos and poor grammar in that spam? Because they've been doing it for a long time. They could certainly afford a copy editor. And the answer is because they only want stupid people to write back. Because smart people who write back eventually will fall away and they won't make any money from them. So the first email is a filter that says, are you stupid enough to write back to this? Because if you are, you might be stupid enough to send us money. And the same thing is true for anybody you can hustle for their attention. The people you most want to engage with, don't don't want to be hustled, and you have to
Right.
earn their attention.
Yeah. Well, and you talked early on with the beginning of permission marketing, all it was about creating a conversation with your customers,
Yeah.
right? Which is clearly honoring what they care to listen to. Somebody else, we had another guest on, I think it was Chris Brogan, who talked about emailing like a human because you're communicating with other humans. But it's great advice, Seth. So another question, also just around 2021, that came in from Alyssa here. I think this came in actually just before the session. If you could recommend just one must-do task for agency leaders in 2021, what would it be? Hopefully that's not overly tactical, Seth. It could be a strategic answer.
I think you need to figure out how to spend real quality time brainstorming with people at your clients who are not in the marketing department. That you should figure out how to organize a call like this one, but with fewer people on it, where 5 or 10 people from a good client show up, from production, from R&D, from customer service, and you take them through a somewhat rigorous form of thinking, not to sell them anything, but to get mutual empathy about what everybody does. The great Tom Peters wrote about something Ike Sewell used to do at his Cadillac dealership in Texas. And Ike Sewell Cadillac was one of the biggest Cadillac dealers in America for years and years and years. And what he would do is he would have 3 months where the sales manager would go to run service and the service manager would go to run sales. And people say, why would you do that? The service manager isn't good at running sales. He'd say, yeah, but what would happen is for 3 months, they would hear the promises or answers each one of them had been giving to our customers. And finally, they'd develop some empathy.
Yeah, empathy is a huge, huge piece of it. So, Seth, more questions are coming in, and I want to make sure I try to ask you some relevant ones here. This one seems timely because I know we talked a little bit about how each of us is working now, and I know that you're typically traveling a lot. You're not now, obviously. You're hanging out primarily at home. But Elspeth asks, has the pandemic and social distancing accelerated the shift away from the concept of mass appeal and pushed us more toward treating people differently?
Right. Okay. So the first half of it is all the data shows that we accelerated the crossing of the chasm of various digital interactions by 3 to 5 years. That everything from Zoom to Amazon that was going like this went like that. Mm-hmm. That's not going to get undone. But here's the thing to understand. So I was a VP at Yahoo in 1999, and the homepage of Yahoo was the homepage of the internet. It was the number one seen thing on the internet, and it was sold out. The banner at the top was sold out a year and a half in advance. And the people who bought that banner didn't want clicks and they didn't want data. They just wanted to be able to tell people they bought the internet. They got everybody. That marketers care about mass. That's a mistake. It's foolish to pay extra for a Super Bowl ad to reach people you don't care about, but people do. Mm-hmm. The internet is the first popular medium since newspapers that wasn't invented for marketers and that isn't a mass medium. You cannot reach as many people on the internet in one day as you can reach with a Super Bowl ad. It's impossible. There's no homepage. You can't do it. It's a micro medium. It is a million little tiny media. It is not one giant one. And it is better at that than anything that has ever existed. So if you want to reach, left-handed Spanish-speaking jugglers, you can do that. Can't do that anywhere else. And so the acceleration is marketers are finally understanding mass is gone. There will never again be another Heinz ketchup. There will never again be another Kraft single. Gone forever. What we have instead is the long tail, and we live on the long tail, and you got to figure out where you want to stake out. That the key lesson, there are like 3 big ideas, and this is marketing. One of them is the smallest viable audience. Stop looking for the biggest possible audience and start embracing the smallest viable one instead.
I mean, there was, I was thinking about it recently. There was a day where all of your friends had seen all of the same ads that you had seen, right? Whether it was the Coca-Cola commercial or the baloney song or whatever, but it's a very different world we live in. Um, a question came in from Twitter, Seth, that I think kind of builds on this concept a little bit. So the differentiation between public relations and publicity.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to know, how you define both of those things.
Right. So I stole this from my dear friend, Abigail Roeder Johnson, who stole it from the great Regis McKenna. Regis McKenna was the best PR person in all of tech. He got Steve Jobs onto the cover of 17 magazines in 1 month. And he took great pains to point out that he was not wanting to be known for that. He wanted to be known not for being in the publicity business. Publicity means getting earned media, people writing about you for free. He wanted to be in the public relations business. Public relations means going upstream, figuring out the story that you tell. That the magic of Apple Computer in 1984 was not that the Mac was a breakthrough, because it wasn't. The Star was a breakthrough. It's not that the Mac was a super powerful computer. It wasn't. What Regis McKenna did, sitting with Steve and the rest of the team, is he helped them craft a story that could become true, a story about involvement and possibility, about technology and the brave new frontier. That story was public relations. It can lead to publicity, but I'm still amazed at how little people who say they're in PR actually do PR. They mostly do publicity because that's what their clients want.
And they don't know the difference or don't know how to ask for it. Yeah. This question was in the back of my mind as I was thinking about the books of yours that I've read, Seth. I'm curious, what do you read? And that was in the back of my mind, and a question came in from Jen here wondering about what books you're reading lately. I assume your source of inspiration comes from somewhere. Where does it come from?
Well, one thing that I know is you can read everything I read, or I could read everything you read, and it's not going to make one of us the other one. We are the collection of a lot of inputs, and mostly we make choices about, do we want to make assertions, and what sort of curiosity do we want to bring to the table? So my blog, for example, comes from two places. It comes from my readers who inspire me every day with the work that they do. Watching just these questions fly by, the insight and the care that people put into it, that helps me get to the next spot. And the second thing is, when I see something I don't understand, I make an assertion as to how it might work. And I keep making assertions until I have a thesis. And then I blog about it, or I explore it even further. And I'm amazed at people who don't want to adopt that mindset and still hope to be productive, right? Like, everyone was around when I was around looking at the internet, but they didn't say, well, but how is this going to get paid for? Or, there's just questions that you ask as you go. And, I read enough books to know that what books are saying, because I need to have a glimpse into what other assertions are other people making, because I don't need to invent the assertion, but I really do need to understand. And that desire, I think, is really important and got drilled out of us in school, and it got drilled out of us by the media, because industry just wants us to accept. And I don't think we should accept. I think we should seek to understand.
So you start out with a curious mind, and then you give yourself time to work on some of those concepts. I'm just like wondering what your process is for your own creative process.
Well, the practice is about streaks and commitments. The magic is there is no magic. So I still tell the story all these years later. I got my first and only real job in 1983. And I walk in, and this was back before voicemail, before faxes. There's a plastic thing that's got 30 slots in it that spins around. And if you call, the receptionist will write the message on the pink while you're out slip and put it in your slot, right? And each slot has a name on it. The names aren't in alphabetical order. The names are in the order you started at the company. And I walk in the first day and I look at this thing and I say, that means I'm going to have to sit there and spin this thing over and over and over again for the entire time I'm at this company. That's the local volunteer fire department. Sorry. And so I reach into her paperclip drawer and I put a paperclip next to my name. Because now all I'm going to have to do is spin to the paperclip.
Yeah.
And then I'll be able to find my name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, within the next 2 days, there were pipe cleaners and colored paper clips. Everyone had decorated their little slot. So did I come up with something of genius? Of course not. I just did it. And that's the discipline, is to make an assertion, right? I knew I wasn't going to get fired for putting a paper clip on the carousel. So what was the worst thing that could happen? That is the mindset.
You know, building on that a little bit, so the way people get noticed these days, or some people do, is leaning heavily into social channels, right? Both personal and business oriented, you know, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, etc. I don't think you're that active on social. You blog a lot, you podcast a lot. I mean, just talk about your approach to social.
Yeah, I don't work for Twitter and I don't work for Facebook. And most of the people who are busy competing for attention there are actually the product. They're not the customer. I think being noticed is way overrated. It is enormously unimportant. You need to be trusted by the smallest viable audience. You need to give the smallest viable audience something to talk about. So the entire growth of my blog, which has never once had a blog post that won the internet, never once had the thing, is simple. I write blog posts so that my readers who will benefit from sharing them will share them, not because they like me, but because they will benefit if someone in their office reads it and they go, see? And I learned that when I wrote for Fast Company. I wrote more words for Fast Company than almost anybody. And my goal was to write a column that people would Xerox and put into the other people's mailboxes. And that's different than saying, how can I be controversial inside of Twitter so people will notice me? Being noticed doesn't help you.
As that relates to things like content marketing and SEO, you know, I think we've had enough guests on here on our series, Seth, similar to you, that have created phenomenal content that maybe started out as a trickle and then had huge followers over time, right? It's just proof of how that kind of thing can work with shareability and word of mouth and things. I mean, does that mean, there's a question that came in, you know, are the windows closing on organic search and pay-per-click also? I mean, how do you address the challenge of getting attention? If you're an agency, do you have to become this powerhouse of content creation?
Okay, so there's content marketing with a capital C and a capital M, and then there's one with the small letters. I do the small letter stuff. Every word you write, I wrote myself. It is something I wanted to say, and I would say it even if no one read it. Capital C, capital M content marketing is industrialized, churned out, a product to be sold to a client. And it generally is fairly generic and fairly replaceable. And it's not a long-term strategy, because every time you try to do something generic, someone with lower standards than you will do it louder or cheaper. And it's similar to the math of SEO, which is, if a client says, I would like to win the search for plumber Florida, that's not a game that they should be playing with their hard-earned money, because the chances of them being number one for plumber Florida are very, very small. What you want to do is win the search for your name, Borelli Mechanical. And then you want to make it so that people talk about what you do enough that people search for Borelli Mechanical. So it's a two-part process. Figure out why people would want to search for you, and then do the work necessary to earn that search. And that's a much longer path, but it's the one that works over and over and over again. You cannot point me to people who have succeeded because they've hustled the system, because they've used capital C, capital M content marketing plus very expensive generic focused SEO to somehow win a sinecure. It doesn't work that way. And, Lyndon Johnson's point in the chat that public relations is often the beneficiary of good publicity. Well, it's entirely possible that good publicity helps public relations, but most of the great public relations stories have nothing to do with publicity. So Nordstrom's built a multi-billion-dollar retail entity around a certain kind of customer service, which then the late missed Tony Hsieh took and amplified at Zappos. These were public relations choices. They were not publicity choices.
Drilling into that a little bit more, I know that the agencies that are on today's session kind of vary in size, right? There might be some that are very small, very large, so it varies certainly in terms of their ability to bring content to market, and to get known. And many of them, as we've learned, might be cobbler's kids, right? They're putting all their energy and their creation around their customers. So, I don't know if there's any other advice that you could provide there.
Well, let's shift gears, because there have been a few questions on this for good reason. It's so hard to be a small business, particularly a small agency. There's a lot of pressure to be everything to everyone. That someone pointed out that many of the people on this call, if you switched the logos on their websites, wouldn't change very much. That the pressure on you is to say, if you need an agency, I'm an agency. And that's not how you get better. The first rule is this: you're going to get better by getting better clients. Better clients demand more, pay on time, talk about you more, challenge you more, and listen to you better. You get better clients not by getting bigger. You get better clients not by getting cheaper. You get better clients by being the kind of agency that better clients like. And that means being specific, not general. Number two, taking the advice of the smallest viable audience is key. So if you are an agency, we'll pick 6 different ways you can slice it, that only works with dentists, you're going to quickly become the best dentist agency in the world, because you know more dentists. You dig deeper, sorry for the cavity reference, with dentists. You're able to understand what they need and give it to them better than anybody. And you can make that clear. So no, now you're not easily replaceable because you're the one and only. But it doesn't have to be demographics like what's your job title. It could be what's your view of the world. So for example, and I've seen this in the agency world, you can say, our numbers unlisted. We only have 10 clients. We're not looking for any more. We're really, really expensive, and you're probably not good enough to be our client anyway. So what kind of person wants that agency? Well, somebody who needs the status that comes with that. Somebody who says, I belong in a place like that one. Get me in. And that's not going to happen for a typical agency, but some agencies have earned that spot. Get me in. Or it could be that, I could talk about this for 45 minutes. The point is taking your own advice to say, who's my smallest viable audience? How do I create scarcity and status and connection for the people who need what I do? And here's how I can tell you if you're doing this or not. It's super simple. How often are you sending potential clients to other agencies? Because if the answer is not very often, then you're saying, if you need an agency, I'm an agency. But on the other hand, if you are eagerly sending people to others, right? Now you've made it clear that you're not in this, I need a more scarcity mindset. You're in this specific mindset. And, one of the examples I like to give is if you look at the back of a book, there are blurbs, right? And Steve Pressfield has written books on this topic. Why would he blurb my book? And if I pick up a Samsung phone and I look on the back, Tim Cook has not blurbed it. Tim Cook has not said, this is a great phone, you should get it. Because Tim Cook is in this mindset of, I make something for everyone and I need everyone. Whereas authors say, my books sell better when they're next to other books in a bookstore. And we'd like you to read books. And if you buy our book, that's fine, but only if it's the book you need. Please, if you're looking for European history, buy that book instead. And that posture shift frees you up. It is so liberating because it puts you on the hook in the right way.
I love that. Just the specific versus general concept is a great concept to think about as a marketer, as an advertiser. So I wanted to ask you this, Seth, because you signed off of the short promotional video you did for this series saying, hey, we're going to have a ruckus. And I think you often give that advice to people. Talk about that. How did you come up with it? What do you mean by it? Right.
So the word's been around a long time. I love the way it's spelled. I'm a Scrabble player, and there's a lot of points in Ruckus.
That's, six tiles on that one. That's good.
I hate the letter U. The letter U makes me miserable, and this way I get rid of 2 U's in one play. Anyway.
Right. That's a good tip.
My definition of a ruckus is, are you changing the status quo in a generous way? Are you changing the status quo in a way we're glad you did? So post-vaccine, if you go to the movies and talk throughout the whole thing, that's not making a ruckus because people aren't glad you did. But if you show up in an industry and start leading and make things better, that's what I call making a ruckus.
It's being noticed. Yeah. So I do want to come back to some more questions from the audience. I want to bring up just a couple of slides here to talk about what's next in our acceleration series, and also provide the ability for people to provide feedback on this session. So as I mentioned before, we've now had 14 luminaries, experts in the marketing space, and we're producing this content piece, Accelerate Your Agency in 2021. We are going to be launching this a little bit later this month, but we're going to have Jay Baer back live on a webinar in January. The date TBD, but if you're just watching this in live stream, you can sign up at sharpspring.com/acceleration. We'll make sure that link is in the chat. So I think this is going to be a really exciting piece with great advice for 2021. And then, the final slide there is, again, we'd love to have your feedback on how these are going. This one is going phenomenal, Seth. Great content already, but please do let us know what you think. sharpspring.com/Seth survey. And we probably have some time for a few more questions coming in. So, Seth, when you think about it, I like this last question that came in. Are there inherent advantages as you see them, Seth, for a freelancer versus an agency, to resist scaling? You talked about the importance of kind of having a point of view and a niche per se, but talk about this if you would.
So I'm a freelancer, and I used to be an entrepreneur, and I might be an entrepreneur again one day, but we should be really clear about what the difference is. Freelancers get paid when they work. Freelancers do their own work. And a freelancer can't scale by hiring junior versions of themselves, because the people who are willing to work for you as a junior version of you aren't as good as you. And also, every time you get busy or in a stressful situation, you will pick the cheapest, best person on your team, which is you, and you end up wearing yourself out. Entrepreneurs build something bigger than themselves. Entrepreneurs are paid to get everybody else to do something. If you are doing the work yourself, then you are stealing from your organization. Because if you're going to build an agency that's bigger than you only have 2 jobs: get new business and hire great people to do something. Don't get in their way. And so, yeah, there's a lot of satisfaction in being a freelancer. It's good for my ego, and it's good for my peace of mind to know that I did it. And on the other hand, there's enormous upsides to being an entrepreneur, to bring together a group of people to build something bigger and better and more powerful than you could ever do on your own. And you should just pick. And you should not get caught in between the two, because getting caught in between the two, as someone who has done it over and over again and learned it the hard way, getting caught in between the two is really painful.
Yeah, we had Carl Sakis on last week, and he was talking about kind of moving from being the person as the founder of maybe the agency that the whole team depends and relies on you for everything, to kind of passing on the responsibility and ensuring that your clients no longer hate if you're not the guy talking to them on a day-to-day basis. You know,
Yeah.
so that's hard for some people to make that transition, no doubt.
Yeah, it helps to do it on purpose.
Yes. So Seth, I mean, this world is really different right now. Is there anything that scares you about what you see out there? I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I don't want to talk about geopolitical, but
I would like to not start
from a marketing standpoint.
This. Yes.
What scares you from an advertising marketing?
Okay, so there are two ways we can think about fear. If you are trying to maintain the status quo, you should be really afraid, because the world is absolutely crazy. And this is the most stable it's ever going to be again. The marketing world, the algorithmic world, the AI world, you know, GPT-3 can write a blog post almost like me. I like the first 2 paragraphs, he had me going, and then, oh, you lost the thread. But anything a computer can do well now, it can do really well in 2 or 3 years. So if you're hoping to hang on and keep the status quo as it is, you should be really afraid. On the other hand, as my friend Brian Koppelman says, fear could be your fuel. And if you can gain the resilience to not need the status quo to stay the same, then something is right around the corner. You know, in oceans around the world, surfers go, and they have no idea what the surf is going to be like. A great surfer who won a world championship, and I've just forgotten his name, bought some inland farmland in California, flooded it, but first he put a train track in. This is a true story. Kelly Slater put a train track in and put a train on the train track with a snowplow in front of it. And this train pushes the water and makes a perfect wave every time. And he built grandstands and put in cameras. It's perfect surfing. And you know what? A lot of surfers don't want it, because the point of surfing is you're not exactly sure what the next wave is going to be. Right. That's why it's surfing. So I'm not afraid. I am certain that this is all going to be different in 3 years. Certain that the rules are going to be different. The interactions are going to be different. The expectations are going to be different. The audiences are going to be different. If you're afraid of that, it's because you're holding on to something. I'm saying, wow, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. And it kind of keeps the future fresh. So Seth, I want to be, make sure that we end on time here, but I do want to ask you, what didn't I ask you? I mean, it's precious to have your time. What didn't I ask you that I should have asked you today?
Well, first, if you could check before I answer, there's something you're in the private chat about Jay's event.
Yeah. I'll make a comment on that.
Okay. That's the question right there. That's the thing that each person has to answer for themselves. What aren't I asking? So in 1993, a guy in my company named Mark Hurst showed me this thing called the World Wide Web. And I'm like, this is stupid. The World Wide Web, it's like Prodigy, but with no business model. We're in the email business. And I lost 9 months of competitive time because I was sure I knew what the question was. And I wasn't asking, wait, what would that mean if this happened? And it's all around us, right? What does it mean if our competitors are building out multiple stores? What does it mean if drop shipping is growing faster? What does it mean if generic everything is right around the corner? Asking these questions for 20 minutes a day opens our eyes to what is possible. Because either you're going to be on the cutting edge exploring what's possible and getting paid appropriately, or you're going to be in the tail edge without a lot of resilience, whiplashed by all the change that's out there.
That is great advice. And Seth, thank you again. And hope you come back and see us again in 2021. We really enjoyed having you.
What a pleasure. Go make a ruckus. Thank you for having me, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. And just real quick, final housekeeping items. I do want to mention that for the J webinar that I mentioned, that's not on the site yet, but we're going to make sure if you're registered for the series that you are aware of how to sign up for that webinar and also how you can get a copy of that content piece as well. And then a quick reminder, if you choose to get a demo of SharpSpring, you can get a signed copy of Seth's This Is Marketing book. So with that, thank you so much for joining today. And thanks again to Seth for his sage advice. And have a great day.